continue this conversation around closing the skills gap, and I'd like to invite our panel up. Andy Van Kleunen, I'm going to do a quick introduction of our moderator for this panel, and then let Andy introduce the panelist. Andy is the Executive Director of the National Skills Coalition, which has become a nationally recognized voice on behalf of its member stakeholders in the workforce and philanthropic communities to advocate for an America that grows its economy by investing in its people. He is a recognized expert on state and federal workforce policy issues and is regularly cited in such publications as the New York Times, the Washington Post, and USA Today. I'm going to turn it over to Andy. As soon as they all get mic'd, we'll get going and introduce the panelists.
Yes, you can hear me. Good afternoon. How are you all doing? Good. My name is Andy Van Kleunen, as Cheryl said. I'm Executive Director of the National Skills Coalition here in Washington. So for those of you who are from Washington, hello. For those who come from out of town, it's great to have you here. As you know, it's really important for folks here in DC to hear about the challenges that business is dealing with on the ground in recruitment and employment, and the role that skills are playing in some of those challenges. And so we have a great panel of folks here today to pick up on one of the issues that, several of the issues that Kim just talked about in her talk. As Kim noted, there are many things that we debate here in Washington, D.C. It would seem that we would not have to have a debate about skills or whether or not there is a skills gap. But in fact, we do have conversations about whether or not, in fact, employers are having problems with finding skilled workers on the ground. So what I want to do is give the folks here with me a chance to talk a little bit about the work that they're doing in their communities with their companies, and to talk about what the nature of the skills gap is, how it's playing out for their recruitment efforts, and what they're doing to address it. So let me introduce them. Right to my left here is Bill Allen. He's President and CEO of the Las Cruces Chamber of Commerce in New Mexico, right at the bottom of New Mexico, 50 miles north of the Mexican border. So he's right there. Next to him is Balaji Ganapati. He's the head of workforce effectiveness for Tata Consultancy Services. To his left is Wilbur James, who is the president of Toyota Motor Manufacturing for Kentucky. 8,000 people working under Will's direction, building a lot of automobiles and trucks for Toyota, from what it sounds like. He's going to talk to us about that. And next to him, Peter Hutchinson, who's a management consultancy strategy lead for Accenture. So let me start off the conversation here with you, Bill. You heard Kim talking a bit about the challenges that Caterpillar's been finding, trying to find skilled workers for some of their operations. How you found that with your members in Las Cruces, the various businesses that you're working with?
Thanks, Andy. And I'd like to say thank you to Cheryl and the Chamber for having me in here. I'm here to talk a little bit about what we're titling a skill-ready community. And what we have done, and we were about 14 months into this process, we have partnered with some of the key stakeholders. And if you saw the video that was just up about the early college high school, all those entities are part of this situation. It's going very well. But I want to tell you a little bit about Las Cruces, a little more than you that you had talked about. Las Cruces is in the southern part of New Mexico. We are about 50 miles from El Paso, 50 miles from the Mexican border. And the south end of the county, Union Pacific, is scheduled in the next 18 months to open up a state-of-the-art intermodal facility. And if history serves, it's going to become a logistics hub right after UP opens up their facility. So there's opportunity down there. To the north part of the county, sometime next year, Spaceport America and Virgin Galactic will stage the first commercial space tourism flight. And once that happens, there's going to be a major draw for employers and service organizations in the northern part of our county. So 14 months ago, we got together. We were fortunate enough to partner with Innovate Educate, received a grant from the Kellogg Foundation, and started to implement the Skill Ready Community. What that is we are utilizing WorkKeys, the WorkKeys tool system, in an effort to ascertain skill levels of potential employees to help businesses move forward expeditiously. And without the partnership, I know that we would not have been the success that we are today. However, by using WorkKeys, and WorkKeys had been around in New Mexico for about 5 or 6 years, but because the business community didn't know about it, didn't care about it, it wasn't utilized properly. So we decided we would go about this from a business-driven approach. And I have about 300 to 400 of our members already signed up and on board to participate in this program, either endorsing it all the way up to requiring WorkKeys to fill a vacant spot. And as you all know, if there's nothing in it for the business community, it's probably not a sustainable effort. So, so far we have seen outstanding delivery of time to hire has been shortened for businesses. So that is a cost savings. We have seen reduced turnover for jobs that have been filled using this WorkKeys. And what we're looking at now going forward, and kind of the long-term approach, is an economic development model. A couple of the questions that always come up, and I'm sure it's the same in every community, but for certain in Las Cruces, when site selectors or business come to look and say, you know, we're interested in operating a plant, opening a plant, do you have the workforce that can perform my jobs in the community? Well, the data that we are starting to uncover, we will be able to utilize to talk to the businesses and say, here is the skill level of the employees in Doña Ana County. They can, in fact, do the job. We're also to the point now of talking to prospective businesses that we are going to entertain the opportunity to basically preview the jobs that are coming in there, make them, I guess, customized, and be able to fulfill those roles as they come forward. So far, 14 months in, it's been a very good success.
That's excellent. And of those 300 or 400 employers, what would you say is the range and size of those firms?
All the way from 1 or 2 person nonprofits to big corporations.
Excellent. So, on the larger side, Will, let's talk a little bit about what Toyota is doing in Kentucky. Are you having issues in trying to find skilled workers to expand your operations, and what have you all been trying to do about that?
First, the answer is yes. We're all having problems trying to find skilled members for our workforce. But some of the larger companies have less of a problem than the smaller companies because we can actually draw from some of the smaller companies. As a result of that, though, we at Toyota decided to try a different way. But let me give you a little background on Toyota first. First, again, as you mentioned, I'm at Toyota's Kentucky plant, which is our largest manufacturing plant outside of Japan. We've got about 8,000 employees there, build about 500,000 cars a year and 600,000 to 700,000 engines. Chances are, if you're driving a Camry Hybrid, an Avalon Hybrid, or a Venza, you're driving a car from our plant. My employees also instructed me to say we're the best plant in the world. But let's face it, you know, manufacturing is not always considered to be one of the most attracting career paths. Unfortunately, I think for educators and for parents as well. So a lot of students aren't being directed that way. Now, part of that may be our problem. We may not have done a very good job of sharing just how cool manufacturing can be. And I think that's one of the tasks that we need to take away from here today to really look at delivering that message in a different way to some of our students going forward. Toyota provides, of course, careers that are stable and pay well, but I think one of the most persistent problems, again, that we have is finding qualified candidates to fill the jobs. We need work-ready applicants, and just for your information, about 5%, only about 5% of the applicants that we get to fill our multi-skilled jobs are actually educated to be able to do the work. Typically in America, most of the skilled workers are taught a single discipline. They're an electrician, they're a pipe fitter, they're a millwright, but most of the global companies today are looking for employees that are multi-skilled, we being one of them. So 3 years ago, we developed our own advanced manufacturing technician program. It's a collaboration with the local community college. that actually is a paid work study program in manufacturing with hands-on results, and it results in a 2-year associate's degree, and then the students can move on to a 4-year degree if they so choose. But I will say 95% of them have after completion of that program, taken on jobs in the skilled trades area. The CMT program provides, as I mentioned, hands-on experience, which gets them really ready for work. And the program is really a part of a 3-part program. It first starts in kindergarten through the 12th grade, working with Project Lead the Way. Then there's the 2-year program that I spoke to you about, and then there's a 1 to 2 year apprenticeship program after that really gets them ready. So we spend a lot of time in the high schools and elementary schools providing a feeder program for this. We started it in Kentucky because Kentucky is Toyota's first and oldest wholly owned manufacturing site, but we've got 10 sites around North America now. We've now moved this program to West Virginia, Mississippi, Texas, Indiana. We're currently working with the state of Tennessee, Southern California, and a few others as well. So this program is very easily followed. But the key, we believe, for us is not to just meet our needs. We put these programs in communities so some of the local manufacturers and other suppliers can send their folks to the program too. So I think the key is for the government to take a look at models similar to this or models like this and actually just emulate it across this country and provide that talented staff that are able to fill the jobs of tomorrow.
I definitely want to get back to this issue about what policymakers should be paying attention to, because I think there's a lot that they could learn here in Washington, probably a lot of state capitals, including where you've got some of your operations. Just to follow up on this issue about some of the supply chain or the suppliers in your area. So you've actually seen that other companies outside of Toyota are benefiting from the programs that you've been setting up with your local schools and colleges.
We actually have gone to local suppliers and encouraged them to put some of their employees in this program as well. Now, even though this program is on our site, because it provides that opportunity for students to walk right across the street and work in the manufacturing environment, even though it's on our site, we request our local area, or we invite local suppliers to send their students to the program as well so that they can fulfill their needs.
Mm-hmm. That's excellent. Balaji, let's talk about the range of companies that you're working with. Now, you work with firms all over the country, I take it, on some of these recruitment issues. What have you been finding and talking to them about their recruitment challenges?
See, as a IT organization, I just want to give a background that we're part of the Tata Group of companies, which is a $100 billion enterprise globally, and TCS is a $12 billion company working in about 51 countries across the world. So here in the United States, which is one of our biggest markets, we've been operating for about 32 years now. And in almost all the states, 450 plus locations across the US. So we feel the problem not just at a national level, but also at a local level in the cities and the states that we operate in. And one of the reasons is that we are growing at about 21% compounded annual growth rate over the last 5 to 10 years. And that's much faster than the industry is growing. And for us to continue those growth trajectory and support the needs of the different companies that we are working with across different sectors, it's not just about creating innovative technology solutions, but having the talent and the skills to feed those innovation and solutions. So about 95% of our workforce is STEM related and either computer science or an adjacent discipline of computer science. So one of the key things for us when we look at the skills gap is, and we peel the onion a little bit, it's not just skill gap at a national level on STEM. If you look at what research and statistics say, STEM jobs are growing the fastest among all the jobs, and about 71% of the jobs are in computing. But when you look at the kind of jobs that these skills require and generate, these are in the fields of cybersecurity, mobility, app development, and these are skills which are new age. There is a need for the education system to play catch up and get to a level where it produces skilled workforce to meet those kind of jobs. Within TCS, we've been focused on our workforce development for over 40, 45 years of our existence, and it's fundamental to us. And we start with an initial learning program where every campus graduate that we hire from around 43 of the top technical institutions in the US, we put through an 8 to 12 week program. And that is sort of a finishing school to prepare them for the kind of industry and the clients that we are working with. Part of it is technical, but most of it is providing that industry relevance and also the soft skills that are required to create a career. Because I know we've been talking a lot about the skills, but I think once that translates into jobs, for us, our focus is how do we help our employees realize their potential? So transforming the jobs into careers. And in order to power those careers, you need to start them right. So as we started doing that, and as we started looking for more people to fill those positions, particularly at a graduate level, the issue is significant. Over the last 10 years, the student enrollment in computer science disciplines across the US has gone down. The proficiency level of students in computer science disciplines and adjacent disciplines has gone down. It is projected by the year 2020, you're going to have 1.5 million jobs in computer science, and only 400,000 new graduates who have been produced to fill those jobs. So you're looking at 1 million jobs that are not going to be filled. You don't have the talent to fill those jobs. So it is a big issue. It's a systemic issue. So rather than just work on the workforce that we have and the colleges and the schools that produce them, we went out into the local communities where we operate. And we started off small in Cincinnati, Ohio. So I want to talk about a grassroots program that we developed, and then maybe when we come back, talk about some of the national efforts that we are part of. But when we went into the school and tried to understand why are students not choosing computer science as a discipline, and this is something that one of our collaborators from My College Options commented on, and he spoke to a different sect of students, and one of them said, what is so interesting about computers? It's like pen and paper. Why would I be interested in learning about pen and paper? But then once they understand that this is the technology that powers careers across sectors, because computer science is not one field or discipline isolated into one industry. You take any of the industries, manufacturing or banking or financial services or telecommunications, any of the industries that are booming across the US, computer science and technology powers those industries. So the communication that goes to the student, either through peers, through parents, or through the education ecosystem, there is a gap. And so we started 5 years ago working with a couple of schools in Milford County, Kleunen County in Milford, Ohio. And over the last 5 years, we worked with about 7,000 students. And, because we are from the business community, a lot of us have been talking about ROI. So let's look at ROI. We looked at what is the interest level of the students before they participated in the year-long program that we do called Go IT. And what is the interest level of the student at the end of that program? And this is specifically designed for high schools. And the interest level increased by about 65%. And then we tracked them 3-4 years out of their high school into the graduation, then the disciplines that they're choosing. And we saw there's a 27% change in students choosing computer science and adjacent disciplines when they go through a formal program that has industry involvement. So I think the answer to the problem that we're facing lies with all of us. It's about recognizing that and customizing that to the industry that we belong to, and getting into the grassroots level, not just advocating about common core standards, which is very important, but then transcending into the the volunteerism and the classroom environment and bringing industry relevance into that. So that's where the majority of our focus is.
Excellent. Great. Peter. So Accenture, we've all heard of Accenture. We know that you work with a lot of companies all over the country, but I know that also as part of your job, you also are talking to state officials and other elected officials as well. So this issue about skills gaps, businesses' challenges for recruiting skilled workers, where does this figure into the work that you're doing at Accenture?
So for those of you who don't know Accenture, it's a huge company, 250,000 employees worldwide. We hire tens of thousands of people every year. And we actually provide hiring and talent services to many of our customers, as well as training services to many of our customers. So we've spent a fair amount of time worrying about this problem, both for ourselves and for the organizations that we serve. And what I thought I'd start out with is just the sort of 8 quick lessons that we've learned about talent and the talent challenges that we face as a way to at least start a conversation. Lesson number 1 is we need to change our language. We still talk about jobs and job descriptions and position responsibilities as though they meant something, and they don't. To call someone a welder today doesn't mean anything compared to what a welder did 25 years ago, or a machine operator, or a technology person. We need to focus our conversation on skills, competencies, and proficiencies, and actually stop talking about job descriptions, because the jobs will change. The skills, proficiencies, may remain and become flexible and make our employees nimble. And the second thing we need to do is, once we know that language, is to start to describe our needs in specific terms. It's, again, not enough to say that we need X. We need to talk about what is the content of the X, and more importantly, and I thought the Las Cruces example was fantastic, we need to tell people how we will know if they have those skills and competencies. Employers increasingly do not trust a high school diploma or even a college degree to affirm that employees actually have those capabilities. So how are we going to know? And we need to tell people that. We need to tell people the secret of how we discern the employees we want from the employees we don't want. And we fail to do that. We think it's a secret how we cull through those thousands of applications. But if we would tell people clearly, as they're doing in Las Cruces, I think we increase the odds that we'll actually get it. My mom used to say, if you don't tell people what you want, you're never going to get it. And she turned out to be right. Thirdly, we need to do a much better job of discovering the talent that we already have. A third of employees, when asked, will tell you that their employer has no idea about the total package that they bring to the job. 40% of college graduates believe they're underemployed. Well, if those numbers are even half right, we have huge talent banks sitting inside our organizations that we don't even know about, and we don't seek to liberate. And I think one of our challenges as employers is to actually get the talent we've got in front of us fully utilized, because I believe, and our surveys indicate, we have a lot more there than we know. And of course, importantly, if we don't use those talents, that talent is going to pick up and go someplace where it can get used. A friend of mine used to say, if you're going to have more than one career, it's not illegal to have it at the same company. But we act as though that's not possible. Again, 40% of employees will say that their firm actually creates barriers that makes it harder for them to change careers within the company. And so no wonder they leave and go someplace else. Fourthly, no surprise, you can't wait for the talent to come to you. You've got to go find the talent. How many of us have experienced posting a position, getting thousands of resumes, and then trying to find the needle in that haystack? We don't need more hay, we need more needles. And we need to be about the business of recruiting the needles, being very targeted and very specific about where they are. And by the way, if number 3 was correct, that is, if we've got loads of employees in companies who are underutilized, that's where the needles are sitting today. Go after your competitors. They've got talent they're not using. Bring it into your shop. That's what we would do. Fifthly, and I think this is an interesting one, we actually can borrow and lend talent from and to one another. There are many opportunities to form partnerships with suppliers, form partnerships with customers, to share knowledge and information, to share talent and experience. And we can use those partnerships as a mechanism to, again, get more out of the talent that's already in the system. So this idea of sharing and lending of talent as opposed to just owning talent, I think is one that's worth exploring. Number 6, we need to build learning into every job. Every job that we have today will be different 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And if we're not building the learning into the jobs themselves, we're denying our employees the chance to grow with the work. And so we should be asking ourselves, I think, pretty regularly, as we design work in our company, have we designed it to grow the employees that are doing the work at the same time? And failing that, we need to redesign the work. If we're not going to have the talent, we need to design work that doesn't need that talent. And many of us, most of us, I'll bet, have been doing that by using technology as a substitute for human beings and offshoring and all kinds of other techniques we're using to redesign the way we do the work. But clearly, that's got to be part of the response to a talent shortage. And then finally, and I think all 3 of these panelists have identified this, we need to build our own talent supply mechanism. And sometimes we think about that as recruiting, but I actually want you to think about it as running your own post-secondary institution, where you recruit people in, you provide the curriculum, you provide the certification, you provide the diploma, and you provide them an opportunity to have a job. Not everybody will graduate successfully from your institution, but they don't have to. You just need to graduate enough so that they can fill needs that you already have. And our own company, because of our inability, frankly, to recruit software engineers, we've launched our own online training program, in which the only promise we make to people who sign up is the possibility that they can get interviewed for a job if they pass the test, pass the course, earn the credential. And that's a radical departure for us to kind of own and operate our own post-secondary training institution. But so far, the indication is it's going to be very successful as a mechanism to provide us with the talent that we need in the long run. So my answer about public policy, frankly, Andy, is that the first and most important policies are our own. What do we do internally? I thought Kim said this so well in her presentation. I'm old enough that I have seen every one of the reforms that Kim was talking about. The Coleman report was actually recently issued when I went to school. And none of those reform efforts have worked. And our business community has been a champion of every one of them. And that's us telling the system how to change. We have great ideas, but the system ain't changing. So I'd say the first and most important policy is the changes we make, the things we can do, the things we control. Those are the things that are most likely to drive us toward a solution. And yes, there are public policies that will need to be in place to support that. But if we don't make the changes first, the rest of the system is not going to do it for us.
So let me follow up on this question about public officials, and particularly because I know you do talk to state officials. You're a former local elected official. So as you're talking to companies, the mayors of the cities where they're located, the governors where they're located, what is it that they think? So what you're saying is business can and should lead on this, but clearly this has to be a role for public policy somewhere. What are those mayors and governors thinking that they could do, or what are the questions that they have about this story that they hear that their local employers can't find skilled workers?
The number one thing, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this. I've been in maybe a dozen governors' offices just this year. And the number one thing they say is, where is the business community? And this shocked me because I thought we were all over this. It turns out we're not showing up. They call meetings, we don't go to them. They ask for our opinion, we don't offer it. They ask us to do things, we don't do it. And so I've started asking the other, turn it around and say, why don't we show up? I mean, where are we? And I believe that the business community has concluded in general and in particular that most of our public policies and public officials just aren't going to do anything. So they don't show up. They don't think it's a good use of their time. And that's really unfortunate because I know governor after governor after governor that would say if we had more business at the table articulating with clarity what it is that's going to take to be successful, we could do a better job. My fear is, though, that we've become, after all these decades of trying this, we've become fairly cynical. Let me, if I could, just share one personal incident with the business community. I've been in and out of business many times. So one time I was the superintendent of schools in my city. This was Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the business community was rightly criticizing our school district for not delivering the quality of high school graduates that they deserved. So I sat down with the business community one day and I said, if you'd write down on a piece of paper the requirements that you want from a high school graduate, just write them down. I'll turn that into a curriculum. I'll turn it into a transcript even. And I'll report to you through that transcript whether or not the young people coming out of our school district were meeting your minimum requirements. Create a brand new transcript, custom built for the business community. And I said to him, you know, if I do that, and I say to our students, this is what the business community wants, I promise you they're going to respond. Because if you tell them that's what it takes, that's what they're going to do. Kids are interesting like that. They're rebellious in so many other ways, but if you tell them what the rules are and they tell them how to win, they're likely to go try to win. I said, but there's this one thing I need to be able to tell them. I need to be able to tell them that if they graduate and they fulfilled all the requirements that you said you wanted from high school graduates, that you will hire them. May I say that to them? That was the end of the meeting. That was the end of the meeting. That was the last conversation we ever had about that subject. And I think those of us who are employers, we need to be prepared to say to these systems, if you do all the things we're telling you to do, we actually will hire these people. And if we were to do that, if we could say today that there are 25,000 cybersecurity jobs, ready to be filled, and we can tell you where those jobs are and who those employers are, and if we could say to the institutions of learning, here are the jobs, and all you need to do is produce to this level of capability, I believe the systems would do it in a nanosecond. Not because they necessarily want to, but because their students would be pounding on their doors to see to it that they were getting the education necessary to get those jobs. But unfortunately today, that's not the message we're sending. We're saying to the higher education community, this is what we need, see if you can do it, and then we'll decide whether or not we're going to hire those people. And that doesn't, to me, from a point of view of a business,
not transaction,
public policy relationship, that's not a very good relationship.
Mm-hmm. Bill, let me ask you about this dynamic specifically within your community. Local public officials talking to the business community. How has that worked out in terms of getting the business community on the same page in terms of the skills and competencies that they're looking for?
Well, actually, the city of Las Cruces is one of our key partners. Mm-hmm. So and at first they balked a little bit. They said, well, we've done this our way. And finally we got to the right person. And he said, that's right, we've done it our way, but there are several areas where we continue to fail in. We continue to hire people and turn them over and over and over. Maybe it's time to look at a different way to do it. And so they are participating full on in support of this.
Excellent. I have a couple more questions, but I want to let folks know that we're going to open up the floor in a little bit to give you all a chance to get in on the conversation and ask some questions. But let me just a reflection on where we are kind of economically in the country today. So we've just hit 7.3% in unemployment, which I think we would all agree is too high, but certainly it's much better than we've been in the past few years. I mean, it's almost 3 points down from where we were at the end of 2009. But different folks here in Washington and other places are interpreting these numbers differently, and it is relevant for this question about the skills gap and recruitment. So there are some who are speculating that this may be the new normal, and that the 3 million plus jobs that we have that are open, that are supposedly going unfilled, that in fact they may never be filled. That in fact those are not really real jobs, or they're jobs that we're going to be cycling through, and that we may never get much lower than 7%. And it kind of is premised on the thought that business is pretty much just about satisfied now with where they are in terms of the workers that they're employing. Sure, they would like them to have more skills. Sure, they would like to kind of have them work more efficiently. But in terms of new hiring, there may not be a lot more. So even though we've seen private sector hiring going up, it's not going to go back to the pace that we had. It's not going to get us back to what we used to consider to be full employment. So let me start with you. How does that ring with what you're facing in terms of Toyota's operations in Kentucky? Are you looking to hire more people, and how aggressive a strategy are you willing to take to try to find folks with the right skills in order to be able to deal with that?
I don't find that logic to be true. Mm-hmm. We've continually been growing in our facilities, and as
our
I mentioned,
records indicate that you have not yet claimed your free credit score. Today
And I
is
think
your last
as
chance.
business continues to grow, Toyota will have a larger and a larger footprint in North America. All of those facilities requiring more skilled workers. But even better than that, you know, I look at now a lot of business that used to be heading off to China coming back into North America. See a lot of localization. I mean, we're building cars in Kentucky for customers in Korea and for Russia and many other countries now. I see more and more of that business happening. So I think we have a lot of positive opportunities to be able to drive the employment rate down. I can assure you that this is not our new normal. If we could get more skilled workers that were able to fill some of these jobs that we're looking at, we would hire them. And as was mentioned before, I think this collaboration between the local governments and the community colleges and industry, I think many of us are willing to say we're willing to hire them. We hire 95% of the kids in our program, and the other 5% we would hire, but they choose to go on to a 4-year degree for an engineering degree. And they know what they're getting into at that time. And I think, honestly, that a lot of students today are driven to go toward programs like 4-year engineering degrees, and those kids are not ready. They have no idea what they're getting into. They have no idea. 35 years ago, I was one of those kids. Fortunately, I was able to make it, make it through the program, but there are better ways to allow that to accomplish itself. The other point that I'd like to make, though, that Pete commented, we've had tremendous support from the local governments and the state governments where we've been talking through our AMT program. In Kentucky, just last week, myself and a few other business members were meeting with our governor talking about how to build the facility that we have on our site right now for the local community so that we can get many, many more companies to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. Same types of discussions in West Virginia, similar discussions in Mississippi. So I think government is open and willing to support. They just need to know exactly what is it that you need us to do. And I think we've got a model that we've already demonstrated can produce the type of workers that we need today. Last point I have to make. Large manufacturers can afford to do this. Maybe I shouldn't say it like that, but the truth of the matter is large manufacturers can build these kinds of programs. But it's the small and the middle-sized manufacturers that are the ones that really, really need it, right? And they don't have the resources to be able to do it. So in my opinion, it's something that government has to take a role in because it's for the competitiveness of this entire country.
Let me just put that follow-up question to that to the entire panel. This question about small and medium-sized businesses, those who don't have the resources to have their own in-house training program, that may not be hiring enough folks to get the community college to set up their own training program just for their needs. What is it more that public policy could be doing to make sure that those small and medium-sized employers have just as much say into kind of what the skills and competencies are that they're looking for when they're hiring as some of the larger employers in the community? What could we be doing with public policy to make that a more regular part of how we're using our public dollars in our schools and our colleges?
When I was in school, we actually had vocational programs where kids could spend half of their day in high school and the other half of their day in vocational areas. There was automobile mechanics, there was architecture. I happened to go into a program called mechanical design. And back then, the kids had an opportunity to see what was available and an opportunity to actually get connected to possible employment after school or go on to college, as I did, to further that education. I think we know what the answer is. We were doing it 30, 40 years ago, and why we changed the program and stopped providing avenues or education for those basic skills that are the building blocks of this country, I don't understand. Maybe somebody else knows the answer to that. I don't understand. But to me, this is not new rocket science that we have to go out and invent the wheel. The wheel is already there. We just have to pick it up, dust it off, bring it up to today because there are different types of skills today than we needed 30, 40 years ago. but just redress this and put the package back in place to be able to accommodate it. And that was public and state funds that were accommodating that. So I guess that's my approach.
I think it's very interesting what's going on in Las Cruces right now. The video that was shown before, the early college high school, focuses on a STEM curriculum. There's a second early college high school. The cement might be being poured right now as we speak, right next door, that's going to focus on medical. But in the last 6 weeks, a third one has been agreed to by the governor, and it's got an entirely different focus. It is for the students that aren't going to go on to four-year colleges. So they're going to walk out with a high school diploma and some type of certificate. So it'll be in a skilled trade type of thing. And the gentleman that you saw earlier, Stan Rounds, who's the person that heads up the public schools, his goal is for them to walk out with a high school diploma and a certificate that says, I can do X, I can do welding, whatever that might be, and third, a job offer all at the same time. So and maybe he's a little different from an administrator of a public school, because he's focusing on things from a business perspective rather than a school administrator perspective, and he's starting to make things happen along those lines. And it's really exciting to see that now it's branched out into different industries.
Balaji, go ahead.
See, I have a different view here. I think companies, whether it is big or small, need to have the awareness and understanding that what we are talking about is a systemic problem, which means that it is important to lay aside things about competition, things about how much they bring to the table versus what they take out, and adopt all hands on deck kind of an approach. But in order for that to happen, there has to be bodies that can bring together companies. So forums like what the US Chamber is doing and the local chambers are doing in states are an important convening to gather momentum around these causes, right? Because the important thing there is how do they share their commitment to that change, to being part of it. And I want to talk a little bit about our approach to that. Okay, when we look at the skills gap, and since it's systemic, we break it down into 4 areas. One is increasing the capacity. So you don't have enough number of students graduating in those disciplines, and if you go back into the K through 12 system, there are not enough people coming in through the pipeline. So there is a capacity problem. The second one is improving the capability. So we heard in the morning about the standards and the benchmarks. It's not just about bringing everybody up to a certain benchmark, but that benchmark to be one that is best in the world. So that our competitiveness as a nation and a nation of innovators continues to be there, right? The third one is enhancing the quality. So not just the capability of the students, but also the quality of the system, the teachers, and the engagement level, the achievement scores, and all of that. And all those 3 will lead into the 4th thing, which is creating employability. So if you create capacity, you build capabilities, you enhance the quality, you bring the entire population of students that we are talking about, or out of work, or you spoke about underutilized workforce, into a stage where they can become employable. And in order to do that, you need national efforts. So one of the things we've been focusing on is on the computer science side, having convenings at a national level and bringing people from the policy side and the administrative side, but also from other competitors and customer organizations that we work with or work in the same markets that we operate in. So just a couple of weeks back, along with STEM Connector, we conducted this first executive roundtable in DC. You can't avoid the city, right? I mean, hub of all the action. So we did that, and what is going to result out of that? And there were organizations like Project Lead the Way, National Math and Science Initiative. We had National Center for Women in Technology, Teach for America. So bringing people who are already doing things that are successful, and then evolving the best practices from that and scaling that up. We don't need new ways of solving this problem. The ways to solve this problem already exist. We keep criticizing the government about, starting different initiatives and instead of focusing the energies on 10 or 20 initiatives, having 400 initiatives. What are we doing on the business side? Can we convene, can we commit to identifying and supporting 10 best initiatives in the industry that we are in or the disciplines that we are focusing on, and pool all of our efforts together? And that's where the real, test is going to be. And if you're able to do that, and this is the time to do it. So,
but it does require, as you said, it requires some way to bring those businesses together. And there's a potential role that policy can make, the government can break, to create the table where those different employers and businesses can sit together and kind of figure some of that stuff out.
Absolutely.
Peter, you kind of put a pretty big challenge out there in terms of what the business community could be doing, that if we're going to ask for something, then we need to be the ones who are actually going to be hiring people when we say, train to this spec. What is it the business community could be doing? If Balaji says, we basically know what works, what is it the business community could be doing to kind of get us over the hump that we're currently at right now, where we can't seem to get legislation passed, things done here in Washington to actually start to create those tables and partnerships that Balaji is talking about, or implement some of those practices that we know work on the ground?
So I think of two things. I think the Las Cruces example is the poster child for the notion that this will probably not emanate from Washington, good or bad, but likely will grow up from states and localities. And to me, that's fine. That's great, because in a locality, where your plant is, where your customers are, in your community, you can actually get collective action. You can get all the people in a room that you need to have in a room. So the question is, how do you scale that up? How does Las Cruces become all of New Mexico? How does the one plant become all of Kentucky? And that's where government does have a role, in partnership with business, to convene folks and say, okay, if that's the definition of a machine tool operator, is that the definition for the whole state? Or are there variations around that are good for, great. Now let's get that put together, and everybody who hires machine tool people can use the same language to describe that job. This is what happened in Germany. This is, we actually are the company that provided the infrastructure for the German labor system. And what's so amazing about what happened there, 20 years ago, Germany was really the poor stepchild of Europe. Hard to believe today. And the biggest changes they made were to get the business community to act collectively, to specify job requirements, and then build all that into the labor system and make that just the way we do things in Germany. And today they have the lowest unemployment rate in Europe. They have one of the best trained workforces in the world. And it was because they took advantage of what they already knew how to do, brought it together collectively. Government, isn't them, it's us, it's our collective will, and use the industry associations that were already doing good work to create certification programs and apprenticeship programs, took all of that, made it public policy, enlarged the scope, and then built the supporting systems. So there's no employer in Germany today that has to worry about how to specify the skills, competencies, and requirements for a job. It's in the skills catalog in the German employment system. You push a button and it pops up, or no one looking for a job has to worry about how to represent themselves in the system, because the system takes their resume or their set of experiences and represents that as a package of talent and capabilities and proficiencies and so on. And then it has this amazing matching system that makes eHarmony look like a beginner, that connects people in an incredibly powerful way, that gets faster job fill. They use many of those tools that you described. Longer retention, lower unemployment, massive savings, financial savings across the system. And one of the things that's so unusual is that virtually every employer in Germany uses this system, even though they're not required to. And by the way, Monster and all those others, they're all there. They're all part of the ecosystem, but they're using the same infrastructure and the same language because it's what employers want. And it works. And we could do this. It's not illegal for us to do this stuff.
And the good news is actually it is happening, right? In some ways, Toyota is doing this within Kentucky. There are other states in the country that have done this. Sometimes it's been with the support of national policy. Sometimes it's been in spite of national policy. But it does seem, if we're going to be able to compete with Germany down the road, we need to figure out some, and other countries, we need to figure out some more efficient ways that we're filling these gaps that we currently have faced at a lot of our local businesses. So I heard the pop go on, so I think that means that the wireless mic is going. So I think we want to give a chance for folks in the room. If you've got questions or comments for the panelists up here, we just want to give a chance, and I'll try to see you. It's kind of bright up here, but I'll let the chamber staff just kind of guide me in terms of where we want to start. Right over here. And if you just introduce yourself when you stand up to speak, that would be great.
Hi, thanks. My name is Bob Andrzejewski. I used to be a school superintendent. Now I'm in the mentoring world. But I wanted to offer a couple of thoughts in response to something Will and Pete, comments you made. Actually reality. One of the I think issues that's impacting what we see in education. We are famous, as we know, for the flavor of the day. Reform comes in, reform goes out. Reform comes in, reform comes out. Those people who have experience, well, those people, a lot of the people who are shaping policy today don't even know to what you refer. There's no reference point. As the baby boomers have left the system, superintendents have left the system, we have lost the historical memory in a lot of cases of interventions and programs that were solid, that worked, especially as it related to our manufacturing base of when we were young and how strong it was. So they don't even have a clue, really, as to how that works. That's not a criticism, it's just a reality. They lack the experience. The other thing is the superintendents change around the country, and they come in, they're inexperienced. I mean, we have superintendents in our state who have maybe 1 year being a principal, then become a superintendent. They are easily influenced by what I call, money. We'll give you money to run this program. Okay, we'll take it, we'll run with it. Doesn't mean it's going to fit or work, but we're going to take and run with it. So we're selling out our own beliefs for the sake of money in some cases. Add on the government pressures that have come down, but I don't blame the government. I blame the leadership within our own school communities at times for not having the ability to stand up. Because we used to stand up. Just your example, Pete, was perfect. Show me the piece of paper that we'll do. We used to do that all the time. And you would back off the pressure. Today, the school systems are succumbing to the pressure, changing gears. And I sympathize with the teachers and the people in the trenches because, as they say, it's the flavor of the day. Where is it going to end? I just believe we have a leadership crisis in America that's starting with the changing of the superintendents, a lot of inexperienced principals, and teachers trying to do the best they can in our classrooms for our kids. And until we address some of those issues, the communication with the business community in our state is awesome. But we have lost a whole cadre of folks like myself who have left and become, like yourself.
So let me get some folks up here a chance to react to that.
To this. And so no matter what we do, we're going to be succumbing to some of these pressures if we don't get the leadership strength.
Reactions or thoughts from any of you?
I'll only say that, the problem we have today is the problem we have today. And we still got to do something about it and address it. And I believe clearly there are some best practice programs that are out there that are already, showing success that we just need to get it in front of folks that can make some decisions to multiply it. And as opposed to everybody coming up with their new wheel, just multiply the ones that are working. And as I mentioned, I am encouraged in the states that we've gone through and shared our program that they're comfortable with doing just that. And we've even had the federal government in Georgetown a number of times taking a look at this program. We've been here to Washington. This is my third trip now to just talk about this program. So I think there's a lot of interest. There's a lot of desire. We just need to continue to preach to the choir and actually allow it to happen. Just a couple of quick points. Again, we feel pretty good about our program, but I think others do too. Automotive Manufacturing Technical Education Collaborative has identified as the best practice. And pretty soon here we'll be honored in receiving an award from the Career Pathways Partnership of Excellence Award in San Antonio. next month. That's federal government. So people are aware that there are some practices out there that work. We just have to multiply them and move forward. And I think if we just focus on doing the things that we see that work, the rest of it will follow. I think the infrastructure will follow in behind it, because there's certainly the need.
So I'd add one thing to that. There's been a lot of ranting and raving about the Common Core over the last several years, and there's going to be several more years. And the Common Core is going to fail, finally, like all the other curriculum reforms, unless we make that piece of public policy business policy. And here's what I mean. Right now, the debate about the Common Core is being held in the halls of our legislatures and maybe at school boards. And what the business community does is it says we're in favor of it. But unless passing the Common Core is an absolute requirement to get a job, it's not our policy. It's their policy. Unless we say you can't come to work for us until you show us that you've achieved to the Common Core level of competence, it's their policy, not our policy. When we make it our policy, they can't take it away. They can't do any less than that. And I just want us as business folks to realize that the best public policy is also the best business policy. And we oughtn't ever think about public policy as something they do for us. It ought to be just the writing down in the public sphere what is our own business practice. And that's where you get, this is the ultimate collaboration, where what the public sector is delivering is what the business community needs, but it won't be what we need if it's not what we do. And we have a huge opportunity, I think, in this country to take the stuff we know that works, which is great business practice, and make it good public policy. And then when it is good public policy, to make sure we keep using it. And then the two will be so indelibly connected as they used to be. As they used to be. When I was superintendent, our technical colleges delivered employees to our manufacturers. That's what they did. And everybody was happy. And then somewhere along the line, we disconnected all of that. Well, it's not illegal to reconnect it. But if we want public policy to be different, then our business policy has to also be different. They need to be the same policy, not two different policies.
And just to feed off on that, I think when that happens, the next step to do is to look at what are the core competencies that we have as business, and then apply that to the problem. It could be creating solutions. It could be using our employee volunteerism to make an impact. It could be use of core competencies. It could be use of resources. But unless we bring our resources to address the problem, then we are taking a hands-off approach. And I know a lot of people in this room are doing a great job of that. But again, in those efforts, creating national consensus. One of the things, earlier in the day, was mentioned is that a career decision is made by a student by the time they are already in the 3rd grade or the 5th grade. So how do you influence a decision that early in life unless you have people on the ground who are interacting with these students or the educators or the counselors or these educational institutions and sharing what kind of careers are shaping up for the present but also for the future? So I know that mentoring is a great example of how a lot of companies are putting in those efforts. And there are 2 national initiatives that have been started off on that. One is US 2020, which came out of the White House, and the Clinton Global Initiatives meet last year. But that's gathering momentum as many organizations, both competing in similar spaces and partnering in different areas, are working together. And the commitment there is coming from the boardroom. The CEOs are committing that by the year 2020, you're going to have 20% of your workforce do 20 hours of high-quality mentoring. So which means you're putting what your resources are on the table to apply to the problem. Another effort is Millennium and Mentors, where, again, looking at the lens of, which is something that we touched upon here and there during this entire day, but the whole topic of the student population and the changing demographics, and how do you impact that unless you have programs that are directed at girls and women and minorities and underrepresented groups, you're applying solutions to only part of the problem. So,
I think we have room for one more, right here in the front.
Great, thank you. My name is Deborah Lyons, and I'm Vice President of Community and Economic Development for our company, ACT. And we are the company that does WorkKeys, and I had the pleasure of being in New Mexico and listening to the folks in your county that are doing some really great work. We actually do the National Career Readiness Certificate, which is built upon WorkKeys. And we're credentialing folks across the country, and it's very much a grassroots effort. I want to tell you a little bit about what's going on, and I'm going to give an ask, because I never take a microphone without an ask of the business community. We actually have been doing very much like Skills Ready Community. When I came down there, we talked about what ACT is doing with Work Ready Communities. Those of you that may not know who ACT is, not only do we do WorkKeys, but we do the college entrance exam. And we're a non-for-profit public trust, very much embedded in taking a product and a social good. We've been doing Work Ready Communities very similar to Skills Ready Communities across the country. We have 8 states moving to 10 states. We're going to be shortly announcing an additional 7 states where we'll have a footprint of counties. That's less than 2 years. We have a wonderful advisory board, and Cheryl Odom here is one of our folks that's on that. We had a meeting with our 6 states who have been doing this the longest, and their #1 ask is a national champion, a national business champion that will stand up and say, Work Ready Communities, and in building these teams at the local level, credentialing your workforce, helping people understand what their skill level is, matching it to jobs is the right approach. And that's what they're asking for. So I'm hopeful, I've got some stack of business cards here. So I'm hopeful that maybe it might be a conversation 1, 2, or 3 of the businesses in the room, or maybe others might be willing to have, because that's an ask coming from state leaders and community leaders across the country. And they really do firmly believe business has to lead. I think it's an opportunity to take a best practice and maybe look at doing some scaling. And I did want to share, Kentucky is one of the states that's doing Work Ready Communities, and I have an email from them about Toyota and one of your Tier 1, Tier 2 suppliers. So I just thought I'd share that with you. So my ask of you all, thank you for your time, and just thank you to the Chamber for this amazing program you've put together today. Thank you.
All right. So I think we're just about at time. Thank you, Deborah. We've got maybe 30 seconds. One last parting message to folks here in D.C., literally 30 seconds from each of you. If there's one thing that you wanted policymakers here in Washington hear before you left town, what would it be? Bill, I'll start with you.
You know, I hope that 12 months from now, I could sit up here again and have that much more data to talk about the success that we've had with this program, and something that, now that we've heard from the folks at ACT, that would make it a little bit even easier to go out to the states that are going to be undertaking that.
To me, it is a commitment, creating a culture both within the organization and through your partner ecosystem, and then collaboration. So you build consensus, but also build collaboration, not just with your partners, but also with competitors on national and local level, and apply the best practices and things that are already working. Let's lend the support to that.
Great. Will?
I would like to similarly echo some of the comments. First of all, I hope it's practical for everybody to understand this is a real problem. This is a real national emergency, I think. So recognizing that there are best practices, there are solutions that are already out there, we just need to go ahead and multiply them, get them across this country, and make it work.
Mm-hmm. Peter?
I'm with Will. I think as I've looked across the country, this is the single most challenging, threatening problem that we face. Not because we're just coming out of a recession, but the next 20 years look really grim if we don't figure this out. And I'd go push a little bit further and say that our admonition ought to be, it doesn't have to be perfect to be successful. If we're waiting for the ideal thing to happen, it ain't going to happen. We need Las Cruces times 3,000 different attempts to do this. They won't all work perfectly, but in their imperfections, we'll find something better than what we're doing today. And we need to do it. And it won't come descending down. We're going to have to figure it out piece by piece, bit by bit, but we will.
Excellent. Join me in thanking the panel for this session. I think it was absolutely marvelous.